try to keep the sort of sense or the proportion of casualties into some kind of perspective. The gentleman with whom we've just been talking, who worked in a law firm in the Northern Tower, said that after the first aircraft hit in that tower, which is 8:48 Eastern Time. This is one of those "where were you when" moments I'm just utterly convinced will be that way in historical terms. Where were you when the first aircraft and then the second aircraft crashed or were crashed into the Twin Trade Towers in New York City on this day, the 11th of the month? And there's a timeline. If it's 8 hours now since this happened, and where Mayor Giuliani speaks just a few minutes ago, they know of 2,100 people injured, and you see the pictures that the young man brought us from the absolute bottom, ground zero location, where the tower not only crashed on itself, but then crashed down into the ground. There wasn't a sound there except the sound of flames licking up from underground, and there was no sign of any person. And we know, because we've said it many times, that the fire department and the police department were going inwards, not outwards, when all of this happened. It's just absolutely impossible to get a grasp at. I'm very interested in the gentleman we spoke to a little while ago from the law firm, I've probably forgotten his last name. Say it out loud. Thank you, Tom Humphreys. Tom Humphreys, who said that it was his impression, at least in his building, in the North Tower, that a lot of people got out of that or had not arrived at work because it was, as he said, by New York standards, just a little earlier than people were accustomed. But when this young man, Mr. Saviz, brought us his video that he'd taken, just got on his motorbike up and then walked in to this scene on the ground, it is to realize that everybody's being kept, as Bill Blakemore subsequently confirmed for us, being kept at a distance from this at the side, and that's what's left on the left of the facade of the North Tower. ABC's Bob Jamieson is downtown now, and Bob, we're looking at the pictures that have been brought to us by this young producer of a magazine. Can you just talk in general terms as you like?
Well, generally speaking, Peter, as the smoke blows back and forth and for a moment or two doesn't obscure both of the two World Trade Center buildings, you see so little. It's a tremendously eerie feeling to be in Lower Manhattan, looking down toward the tip of the island and seeing very few people, no traffic, the smoke continuing to billow from these buildings, and nothing where there were once these two landmarks that drew everyone's attention, whether you drove or flew or came to New York by boat. But Peter, there is a new concern, according to authorities, at this moment here in Lower Manhattan, and that is the growing fear that another building in the World Trade Center complex, which was not struck by an airplane, is in danger of collapsing. That is number 7 World Trade Center, somewhat shorter, with somewhat fewer stories than numbers 1 and 2. There is a fire burning vigorously in the lower floors of that building, threatening the foundation. And the building was already damaged some 6 hours ago now when the North Tower collapsed, and part of that process of the building collapsing struck and damaged number 7 World Trade Center. So it was already at some risk before this fire grew as vigorously as it has. The authorities have now moved people several blocks away from that building, and we're just watching and waiting to see what happens.
Bob, is number 7 World Trade Center, and I see you've now managed to come down to the ground, which suggests things loosen up a little bit. Is that where the mayor's emergency headquarters are?
Peter, I honestly don't know, but I will tell you that number 7 is just behind number 2. I'm in Tribeca now, and you're seeing mostly smoke from the remnants of number 1 and number 2, but there somewhere in that smoke is number 7.
I don't know how big number 7, the World Trade Center, is. But on my recollection, it's a fairly low building, isn't it? Or is
yes, I would guess, and I'm sorry to have to make a guess, that it is only about half as tall as number 2.
Okay.
That seems to me what it appeared to be.
We'll find out soon enough. I appreciate it, Bob. Thanks very much, Bob Jamieson, who, as this day unveils, manages to get closer and closer. In a minute, we're going to